Hi, this is the first of many short versions of a lecture. I'm told these shouldn't be longer than 5 or 6 minutes, and so I'll try to make them not longer than 5 or 6 minutes. And this is a brief walk through the Chapter 6 slides, Introduction to the Region of Sub-Saharan Africa. So this is the biggest part of Africa, probably, that's south of the Saharan Desert. And it's very hard to cover an entire continent in just a few hours, but we're going to try to. One of the most important things, I think, that differentiates African musical practice from, say, European musical practice is the deep connection with society and spiritual elements. There isn't really a concept of let's go to a music concert in a lot of sub-Saharan African cultures the way there would be in European cultures. Sub-Saharan Africa has a lot of shared culture, it has a lot of diversity, and it also has a number of elements that are shared between cultures. Of these, the most important are probably polyrhythm, responsorial or call and response forms, ostinatos, and shimmer. The highlighted links, polyrhythm, responsorial forms, and shimmer, these will be in the slides on Blackboard, and those are hyperlinks to YouTube that'll take you to some examples. The polyrhythm is a lecture by an African master drummer about how polyrhythm works, especially in the Ewe culture. The responsorial forms show some school children from Ghana or Kenya, one of the two, singing in a responsorial fashion. And the shimmer one demonstrates what shimmer is about, and it's an incorporation of random sound elements into the musical sound. So if you can imagine a piano that has built onto it some shakers or rattles that vibrate sympathetically, that's one of the things that's important to that music. Polyrhythm, and there is the video you can watch, is a simultaneous layering of two or more rhythmic structures. If you think of one rhythm happening in two and one happening in three at the same time, that's a polyrhythm. So they're superimposing different rhythmic structures on top of each other. Responsorial forms are call and response. A leader says or sings and is responded to by the group. This is also found in other musical cultures, but it's a very integral part of a lot of African forms. An ostinato is a short pattern that repeats over and over again, and it's not, again, unique to African forms, but it's something that is extremely important. If you're familiar with, say, MC Hammer's Can't Touch This, underneath that there is an ostinato that's taken from Rick James's Super Freak. That's an ostinato. And sub-Saharan African music is very heavily dependent on percussion instruments. Drums, rattles, xylophones, bells, and mbiras, or thumb pianos, sometimes called kalimbas. There are also string instruments like harps and lyres, and there are also flutes that are also used throughout the sub-Saharan African region. Shimmer, are, as I mentioned, are these beads or coins or things that rattle and buzz along with the music. There's also a close connection between music and language. So words are always implied. Even instrumental music is songs without words. There's also a participatory nature to the arts in sub-Saharan Africa. As opposed to having musicians who perform for others, everyone performs together. There's not that separation. Song, dance, music, poetry are often the same word. And here are some examples of polyrhythms. The simplest is the simple triple rhythm on the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then a compound duple meter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can see that the numbers that are larger are louder. So you can see how 3, 4, 5 interlock as accents within those two layers. A lot of African languages are tonal languages, meaning that there is a pitch meaning. Things are changed according to pitch. We do that very little in English. We only usually use it to indicate a question. So at the end of a sentence in a question, the voice will go up. Do you know what I mean? A talking drum is a drum that can give pitches and give us different things. Talking drums can use the rhythmic nature and pitches of language to somewhat mimic that sound, which is why they're called a talking drum. Membranophones are instruments that use a membrane, so some kind of a drum. They can be hit with hands or sticks, depending, and they may be closed or open at the bottom. Idiophones are instruments that make their sound by the instrument itself sounding, so bells, gongs, cymbals, log drums, which are logs that are hollowed out and struck, pottery drums, rattles, all those are idiophones. They make their sound from themselves. Aerophones, which would include the voice, are anything that have to do with air making the sound. Trumpets, flutes, anything like that. And chordophones are any instruments that use strings, musical bows, bow harps, triangular harps, bridged harps, and harp lutes. And there are some links to those things in the folder on Blackboard as well. The virtuoso drumming piece of the Ewe culture is the Atsia, and again, there are some links to that online. And I think it's best that you listen to that. I'll also give you some links to Atoke and Gankogi bells, which are very, very important. The Jali is a tradition sometimes called griot, depending on which language we're transliterating from, which is a musician, historian, keeper of war, and it's an important tradition. And the principal instrument of these people is the kora, which is a large chordophone. It's a hybrid lute harp. And so you see the large gourd-shaped resonator on the bottom and then the strings that are suspended. The balafon is a xylophone-type instrument with gourd resonators. And both the balafon and kora use 7-note scales, or heptatonic scales. So they're not the same scale patterns that we would use in European music. And then we have the mbira, or thumb piano, and this is an instrument that we've heard a lot of. And a matter of fact, the picture of that one is one that I linked to earlier in this slideshow. There are also blendings of African music with Western music, especially in South Africa, and especially beginning in the 50s and 60s. High life, Fuji, Mblaqs, penny whistle jive, sax jive are all forms of dance music that are connected with American popular musical forms. Gumboot music, or Isikathulu, is a style of dance performed and it's associated with a particular kind of singing, iskathamia, which is an a cappella music, which was frequently banned by the whites and is found in Paul Simon's Graceland album. More of these will come later. Thanks.